Hey, it's Liz. Um, yeah, so today I wanted to talk about autism spectrum and lying because I think there's some confusion that I see about that, and obviously I can only speak from my own experience, but I want to talk about that. And the other, I just also wanted to give a quick update, so I'm going to do that first. Um, so I'm still following the Onision story. I just watched the latest installment from Chris Hansen, and I still intend to do a video talking about some of the predatory men in my life that, you know, that hearing these stories is really bringing up for me and making me think about again, from the lens of a 33-year-old instead of like a 19 and 20-year-old. And yeah, it's just been really important for me. A lot of things about how um, his him being exposed, like the way that's all unfolding. Yeah, and the thing about it is, I've actually tried recording such videos twice now, and I just really was so unhappy with the result. Like, I don't, I don't want to. Like a lot of people, like a lot more people are gonna see it than my other videos because mentioning Onision right now means that you get a lot more views. And I don't want to put something out there that's just like bad. Like this video is probably going to be kind of bad, but it's going to be short and almost no one's going to see it. So it's whatever. I'm just so tired, guys. Like I'm really trying to hold it together. This is my day off, but it's already almost over. I've been trying to rest for the past 4 or 5 hours and kind of tidy up. But I'm still totally zonked. I've been really busy. So I don't know. I'm trying to get around to it. I'm trying to get the energy to do a good job. But anyway, lying. So lying and deception. I should lump deception in there because it's slightly different but related, obviously. So there's this kind of idea that some people have that autistic people can't lie, and that's probably true for some autistic people. This autism is sort of an umbrella at this point, the way it's defined. And I've known, like, I know one guy who might be considered severe if you're gonna frame it that way. I mean, he's also blind, and I would venture to say that autism is not the only sort of neurological issue he has, because yeah, anyway, he's just like such an amazing person, and I don't mean that some sort of like inspiration porny way. um Although he does have a lot of challenges. He's just like so sweet. He's so sweet and kind and good and interesting and funny, and he's just like a really fun person to hang out with. um but my experience with him, I mean, it's not like he's so innocent or so naive or whatever that he can't understand that there are people who are deceptive or there are people who do bad things. But I remember he actually told me once, he said, "I've never met a person I didn't like," which was like mind blowing, but at the same time, like, I'm 100% sure that he meant that. And I kind of can't imagine him lying. I don't know if he would be able to do that because the way he communicates is, I just don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I'm just not sure if he could. I don't know. For me, I definitely can lie, and I have lied. And I've actually gotten to the point where I can be kind of good at it in small doses, you know? But it's hard. Like, it's hard in a way that it doesn't seem like it is for other people. And I don't mean morally. You know, I am not so pure as this guy I'm talking about. Um, I mean, even if I'm thinking about it in a totally selfish way, where, you know, lying would benefit me and I'm not caring about, you know, being ethical, it's just hard for me to lie. It takes a lot of energy, because I mean, it takes a certain amount of verbal and social energy to just express a genuine thought or feeling, right? And, you know, I, like many people on the spectrum, can totally get to the point where you're, you know, so drained that you can't even process verbally, really, you know? I can and have gotten to that point quite a few times. So, you know, that takes a certain amount of energy that I don't always have, right? It takes extra energy to contrive a thought or a feeling, you know? Like, you get a certain kind of momentum going when you're being genuine because you have this thing in your mind or in your heart, whatever, and all you have to do is, like, turn it into words and then say them and, you know, use your facial expressions and your body language to help convey what you're saying, right? If you have to, on top of that, like, contrive what you're doing to try to, like, think of a lie and then contrive everything you're doing to try to make it seem convincing, that's just a lot more energy. So it's something I generally try to avoid, if only for that reason. Now, of course, I also have moral reasons. I'm not amoral, but even in my darker moments, I try to avoid lying, um, because it's stressful for me. And yeah, the only way I've really found to do this, because, you know, there's also a certain level to which, I mean, lying is not just normalized, but it's sort of required socially. Like, you have to lie to a certain extent, or at least suppress saying what you're thinking, right? Like, if I really want to be, I mean, I'm pretty blunt and genuine a lot of the time, but I definitely have learned that I have to, like, rein that in certain circumstances because of how it will come off, or because of the actual content is just hurtful to people, or because it's inappropriate for the setting, or, you know, whatever, right? So that is a small deception, you know, it's a lie by omission. Um and I've learned to, that's the easiest kind of lie though, right? So I've learned to mostly lean on that. Like, if I'm talking to somebody and I really don't agree with them and I really don't, whatever, you know, yeah, let's say I really don't agree with them about what they're saying, but it's not appropriate, or I don't, for whatever reason, want to be in an argument with them. Well, I mean, when I was younger, I just kind of wouldn't be able to navigate that situation without getting in an argument. So now I've learned that a tool, which is, I find something about what they're saying that I can agree with. Some common premise, or some feeling that they have that I can validate, or, you know, something to hang on to, some kind of common ground, or something about what they're saying that I can say something positive about. Um, and I go with that, and I don't engage further. You know, I don't probe them, or maybe I do probe them, but in a way that's neutral, in a way that's not going to kind of veer it into an argument. So that's been a really useful tool that I learned. Another tool is very similar. So this sometimes you do have to actually not just lie by omission, but you actually have to say something or do something that is not true in order to spare someone's feelings or be appropriate or avoid some sort of unpleasantness, confrontation, or um, whatever. Or, I've also, frankly, of course, done this in times when it was to my advantage to do it and it didn't really seem to harm anybody. So I did it. And this is really as far as I ever want to go in lying. But I will, and this is something I kind of learned from theater. I've done a little bit of theater training and I've done a lot of performance art and that kind of thing. And part of what you do in those disciplines, and like a lot of people on the spectrum, I specifically went into performance and theater to help me kind of learn how to perform socially and avoid anxiety, learn how to mask in a way that was, I guess, genuine enough for me to be kind of comfortable, um, but also appropriate enough to be not hated by everyone. So, so something you learn in like an improv class, for instance, is that, you know, you learn to find the truth in what's going on because it really helps to sort of feel it. You find some sort of something, again, something you can hang on to that is true or that can feel true to you. You find a way to make it feel true to you in that moment. And so that's the kind of technique I'll use, and I'll use a lie that is as close to the truth as possible, right? It's just a verisimilitude of some kind. And if I do that, I can avoid detection. And also, like, those classes also help me learn how to avoid feeling anxious about what other people are thinking of me, or whether or not I'm achieving the deception. Just kind of let it go. That's what you have to do when you're on stage. You let go of how the audience, you realize the audience might love you, they might hate you, they might think you look stupid, they might be laughing at you when you are not trying to be laughed at. um, and you just go with it, you accept it, you kind of radically embrace it, whatever it is. And so that's what I do. Whether I'm lying or not in a social situation, I've learned to radically accept however I'm coming off. Try to like be aware of it, but not feel attached to a particular outcome, I guess, even if I do have an outcome that isn't my goal. So, yeah, that is what I'll do, and that actually works pretty well. I was in a game a few weeks or a month or a while ago, at a friend's with I was at a party, and we were playing this party game that's like, it's kind of like that murderer game where like somebody's the murderer and somebody's the inspector and everybody's the townspeople, and you all put your heads down, and it's kind of a game of like trying to draw out who's lying, basically. And I wound up being the sort of murderer type role a whole bunch, which was uncomfortable for me, right? Because honestly, I was just exhausted and I didn't really want to play the game. But I used that feeling exhausted and feeling not attached to the outcome of who wins the game. I used that to come off as sort of nonchalant and comfortable, and that allowed me to, and I even managed to play it off without directly lying. Luckily, nobody directly asked me, are you the bad guy or whatever. People sort of made sort of sideways accusations like, oh, why did you do this, or blah blah blah, or, you know, if you guys aren't the one, it must be you, kind of thing. And I would just sort of, I would say things that were true. I would try to say whatever, I would try to think of whatever I would say if I hadn't gotten that card, and just say that, right? And just be totally calm. And I was never called out. Like, I was never, they never, I always won. I won the most games of anybody. So that actually made me really proud in a weird way, just because, I mean, lying in general, I mean, it's basically a bad thing, right? But at the same time, it's like, it's a requirement of life, unfortunately. And it's something that's not a natural skill for me. So I was really proud that I was able to pull that off. Um, so that's like my perspective on it. It's and you know, talking to other people on the spectrum who are kind of similar to me in their ability to navigate socially, I mean, I feel like I do it okay, especially when it comes to sort of niche social circles, like subcultures and stuff. I can do well. I can come off well, you know. Um, I think, but that's pretty typical, I think, to just have it be our preference that we not have to lie, because it's exhausting. It's just extra work. And this is kind of feeds into how autistic people can become easy prey for, like, people who do lie and who are manipulative, who are deceptive on sort of these grander scales than just a lie here or there. People who, like, have these whole sort of worlds that they've created that are just the layers of deception, right? Like, that is so hard for an autistic person to understand, because we're just like, how do you even do that? Like, why would you even do that? It just would be so exhausting to maintain. It just doesn't seem like anyone would really do that. So it's kind of hard. It's hard for us to understand that there are people who do that. To, like, really believe that somebody who seems normal would be doing that, because we just can't relate, you know. We would never live our lives that way, because it would we wouldn't be able to pull it off, and b, it would be unpleasant. um so at least when I was younger, that made it really hard for me to, like, critically understand the behavior of really narcissistic and manipulative people that were around me, because I just couldn't really accept that they were really lying that much, and that they were really being so manipulative and doing so many backhanded weird things all the time to maintain these illusions that they'd created about themselves. Like, it's just like, no way. Like, this is something that happens in soap operas. This is not something that's real, right? Like, no person would really do this. I don't know. It's kind of like, one thing to intellectually know people can be a certain way, and it's a totally different thing to, like, know people and care, like them and care about them, and then realize that they are, you know, X, Y, and Z. Like, especially when you really don't relate, you know. And for that reason too, a lot of autistic people tend to be very trusting, because it's harder for us to pick up on lies, for related reasons, right? Like, uh, you know, picking up on social cues and that kind of thing. Um, and, you know, yeah, because if we like somebody, it becomes that much more difficult to believe that they would lie. And of course, both of those things can be issues for, you know, non-autistic people, of course, but it's just especially true for autistic people, because there's that gap in what we can relate to and what we understand and what we pick up on readily. So I've learned in my as I've grown into adulthood, some of the things to look for. I've spent time like consciously learning the sort of all these red flags and all this stuff. And I and now it's kind of funny because I feel like there's this thing that can happen with people on the spectrum who were quote unquote high functioning, who manage to like mask pretty well and manage to learn intellectually all this stuff that, you know, neurotypicals tend to take for granted. There's a certain point where the learning curve can actually like switch around where like, you know, people on the spectrum who've done all of this work and all this research and put all this time into learning these things can actually get to a point where I think we are better equipped than the average neurotypical who has kind of taken for granted that they already know all this stuff really well, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's a hubristic thing to say. Yeah, probably I'll just totally be taken advantage of just to bring my pride down a notch. But I don't know, it just kind of seems like that. Sometimes having a natural ability to do something means you don't work as hard at it, and you know the people who work hard wind up surpassing you. So anyway, that's my thing. I'll talk to you later. Hopefully, I won't be so tired. Okay, bye.